the cashier was talking to Maurice, right? And so he was like talking to her, but everything he said just seemed to be so damn funny. And so I'm just looking at her like, and I was like, he's not that damn funny. Like, you can stop. Hey everyone, and welcome to an episode of Life After I Do. Uh, I'm your host, Anisha G, and I'm here with my lovely co-host,
Molito.
Molito, my husband. Life After I Do is a marital podcast just talking about life after the honeymoon, after the nuptials, after the I do. Um, my husband and I here have been together more than 2 decades. We have been married a little over 7 years now, and we really wanted to kind of just have the open conversation about what marriage looks like after the I do's. I think everybody has like an idea or a perception of what marriage is supposed to be, and it's not until you get into the thick of it.
Really?
Right.
Really?
Where you kind of things change, right? Because you're still people, and as time goes on, you as people change. But I also think that there's not enough conversation happening or questions being asked before marriage. There's premarital counseling and things like that, but I think in today's era, there's not enough conversations really being had before marriage actually happens, and what that could look like, and some of the challenges that you could face being in a monogamous relationship with someone that's intended to be a lifetime, or for a long time. So I thought it was a great idea. My husband and I thought it was a great idea just to basically have like an open conversation for especially people like the millennials and things like that, to have this open conversation about marriage and to discuss some of the things and challenges and situations that can come up after I do, once all the excited feelings kind of wear down, not wear off, but wear down, and life is really injected, kids, work, money, all the things that spending a lifetime with somebody encompasses. Because we find that when we speak to our peers or friends or other people, it can sometimes feel isolating, some of the things and challenges that you go through in marriage. So we just wanted to be able to create a platform where we can have that open discussion. And hopefully, some of the things that we work through can help other people work through their
I
situation.
think we need to clarify, because people they've been together 2 decades, but they only been married 7 years.
Yes, yeah. I was going to get to that.
Like,
Okay, so just a quick backstory. I feel like we can have a whole episode of like how we met and all that stuff, but just to like a quick backstory. I've known my husband since the 6th grade. Okay. As far as like real serious relationships, in a technical sense, he is my first and only boyfriend, and I
what I
married him.
do, what I did,
Okay.
what I did,
Um,
what I did.
like you know how you have like your junior high school kind of things, but
Oh yeah, I know about that too.
anyway, I've known my husband since the 6th grade. We began dating in high school, and we've been together ever since. So yes, our story is a little different. I feel like I stuttered there a bit, but it's a little different than most. I've been with my husband my entire adult life, and like since I was a teenager.
You just have that you only person. I've been with you my entire
Yes, you.
life too. Like, you act like I had somebody on the side. My entire adult life. Come on now. Don't.
Well, yes. So in a nutshell, we have grown up together. Okay, so a lot of the stages in life that especially maybe the older generations like to give us advice on about, in your 20s, you want to explore, right? Explore, experiment, find out who you are, and all this other stuff. All of those type of pivotal moments in our young adult lives or whatever, we had to go. Well, we didn't have to. We made a choice to. I shouldn't say we have to. We had to. We made a choice to go through all that. Right. To go through all of that together. So our teen years, our early 20s, now we're in our mid 30s. Um, and that just kind of takes me, I don't want to like veer off too much, but that takes me to another line of thought, which is like, yes, it is a choice. And I think in marriage, you really have to make it a choice. You know what I mean? Like, granted, we haven't been in this marriage thing decades yet, but we have been together for decades. Um,
See, I
and
disagree with you with that because I feel like just because we weren't legally married, we've been we've been living.
so we've been shacking
Well, we were
for over 2 decades, and we've been legally
right, but we've been in it in a phase where or I count all the years where we weren't officially married on paper as still married years because we were still committed to each other and we were still living a married lifestyle. We
right.
still had the one house, the one income coming together. Like we just went a different way about splitting things than we did then.
Right. It just looked a little different, but it's still like I was saying, that was a choice, right? Even when we were going through some of our like tougher times, especially like in our 20s, and not being married, not having kids, not like owning property together, it could have been very easy to just be like, you know what? The goals and ideas that I have for myself, I could very much just go off and do those things on my own without having to consider someone else's future or someone else's feelings, which we'll get to later. Maybe not later in this pod, but in the next pod where we'll talk about that, where that was kind of like a discussion that we really had once upon a time in our relationship. But I say all that to say that um, you know, commitment, I think, is a decision, right? So as we get later into other episodes, that's kind of, along the lines of why we wanted to start the podcast, is because at this moment in life, we are still making the decision to want to be in this together and having to create compromises or coming to a compromise to see what fits each other, and what's best for like us as a couple, choosing to stay together. So, but back to today's topic, like I was saying in the beginning, I think what's really important is about having those conversations before marriage. Um, what I can kind of see sometimes out there, I be on social media too, just like everybody else. And especially looking at the generation that's coming behind us, things can look very, I don't want to use the word superficial, but for the lack of better verbiage, I'm just going to use superficial. You look at all of the things of what the wedding is, right? Everybody wants a beautiful wedding, a beautiful ring, a sexy ass mate, the career and all this other stuff. But when you hear some of like people, even, older millennials in our generations or older couples talk about marriage being hard work, um, it can sometimes be off-putting. But when you hear them talk about hard work, it's not that it's like a struggle, but there's work. Like marriage is work. And I hate like saying it like that sometimes because especially when I talk to younger people, it's like, well, if it's that much work, why would I want to get married? Like, I don't see the benefits in getting married. It's just a piece of paper. Why get married when everyone keeps talking about it's hard work? It's hard. It's hard, beautiful work, right? Like I said in the beginning, if you're making the decision to be with somebody, being with somebody and being committed to somebody is a decision, right? You agree?
Yes,
Yes, it's a decision. It's a decision that both people have to make.
and it's a decision that you shouldn't take lightly.
And it's a decision that you shouldn't take lightly, right? So when we're having the conversation or like premarital conversations, um, things like family structure, uh, like who's going to work, who's not going to work in the event that you guys have kids. What does the household structure look like? Really knowing some of the characteristics of your partner. Now, granted, in the beginning, you can very much have those conversations and things down the line change,
Should
right?
have those
Yeah,
conversations.
you should have those conversations and things down the line change. But I think it's really important to really try to know your partner as much as possible and know them at basically like their base core. You know what I mean? What are their views when it comes to, in the event that you guys have children, how are you going to raise your children? If you guys come from two different religious backgrounds, how do you rectify that? If you both come from, two different types of households, to how your household was ran, if you came from a two-parent household, if you came from a one-parent household, what does that person's spending habits look like? What is that, all of those things I think are extremely important, because when you get into a marriage and you're trying to be in something that's going to help, or that's going to be something that's long lasting, if you don't have like a ground basis, I think that you're operating from, it's those things are good. Not only they're challenging in the like in essentially, but they're going to be even more challenging trying to make a compromise.
Yeah, but you also understand you don't have to cover all your bases
Right, right.
because like you have said, you're going to change. Both parties are going to change. You're not going to be. Lord knows that we're not the same. We don't think the same
Oh
way
my
we did
gosh.
when we were teenagers, and we don't
Not a
necessarily have the same beliefs or ideology in certain things. But you have to, at the core of it, you have to have a common understanding and honestly just a common love for to be understanding towards one another and give each other grace. Like you're saying, I do agree. Like we sat down and we had the conversation and we pretty much had like we had firm like we defined things firmly, like what's okay, who's going to be doing what, and like we agreed with that, and we've and some of those things like we have in place up until this day, and then other things, as far as like divvying up housework or like stuff like that, some of those things have changed over the course because of we're not in the same situation. We're not two young adults going to college and working anymore. We are uh, two parenting adults with a full child that's a full time job, and like the situation has changed. So I think that it's important to like just because you um place a foundation in the beginning does not mean that you can't come back and revisit that conversation after a period of time once the circumstances in the life has in your life has changed and things are not necessarily the same as they were when the union was first created.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because the change is inevitable. But I think, you know, going back to, like I said, it's also really important to try to really have a good understanding about your partner, right? Um, it- for us in the beginning, we were very young, right? We were having conversations about living together and family and stuff like that at 16 years old.
Well,
So,
that's because I wanted kids at early.
right. But what I'm saying is like if we were to be in a situation where we were dating in our 20s or in our early 30s, I think that would look a lot different. Just like
No, I think in your early 30s you need to have those conversations up front because you don't want to be waiting too long. in your, if you want kids, if you're dating in your 30s and you want children, you let that be known up front.
you don't have to, you ain't got no time to
Right,
waste, huh?
you ain't got time to waste. So the other person don't want what you want, you got to find somebody that do. Like you can't, you can't be. But again, we're different from a lot of people because one, we were 16, 15, 16, dating, spending pretty much every day of our lives together,
Yeah.
spending
We
eight
grew up together.
pretty much spending 8 hours a day. And like I think, you know, the most we've ever been apart was during the college years when we literally had opposite schedules. Like I
And
would
when you moved away,
yeah, when I would
right.
right, I would be going to work and you'd be coming. I'd be leaving for work, you'd be coming in from work, or you'd be going to class and I'll be coming in from class. Like so, literally during our college years, like we literally only saw each other maybe one full day, and even that day was pretty much just consist of us both sitting in separate rooms studying and trying to
Right.
get ready for
I
the
mean,
week.
that pretty much started when you went off to college because he went off to college first. So, you moved away from home. You had to get a job. You were working. You were going to school, new college schedule. I was still in high school.
I mean, I tried to see you on the weekend.
You did.
It
It was
was
difficult.
rough. It was rough. I had a lot going on. Had a lot going on.
It was difficult, but nonetheless, um, there was still that level of commitment, and I think that level of commitment was also there because we had conversations, right? Because we connected. It's so crazy to say, for teenagers, because looking back now, when I talk to other teenagers who are like in love and stuff, I'll be like, girl, you don't need.
You weren't in love.
Right. But as a person who was a teenager who was quote unquote in love, we had those conversations. Like we had a layaway when, what was it? Well, my junior year? I think it was my
Well,
junior, the layaway. Remember the layaway we had got because you were leaving first? And when I graduated and I came to, we started living together.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember the layaway?
No.
Oh man, yes, I remember the layaway when you got the job with the city, and we used to go to Walmart and we bought like dishes and stuff at Walmart and put them on layaway. You don't remember that?
I don't. I, d- I did not remember that. No,
Well, anywho,
you said it
we
happened.
did.
It probably happened, but I don't remember that.
But yes, but we were having those conversations before, and we had a goal, right? So,
I mean, according to your father, I stole you in the night. So
by. We had a goal that we wanted to accomplish together. So that required us both making a commitment to kind of do what we had to do, even when it was difficult, if we wanted to reach the goal. So if the goal was that important to us, which was like living together and being together, forever, because especially when you're first in love, it's like everything feels great. I just want to be around you all the time. I need to be under you. I love you so much. Life is going to feel and look like this forever. And spoiler alert, life don't look like that and feel like that forever. Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
let me get a couple of days to myself.
Doesn't. That's why it's called Life After I Do. But yeah, so those types of conversations are extremely important. So I want to ask you, babe, what questions or conversations, like give me your top two subjects that you think should be had prior into going into marriage, knowing what you know now,
Prior going into marriage or a relationship,
and prior going into marriage.
you have to have defined roles. Like you need to have defined roles. Like
No willy nilly.
no willy nilly. It's like you have to like. I think what works about us is like it's like I was never opposed to cleaning anything, and I didn't mind cleaning, but it was like bathrooms was like I can't give a bathroom. So you were like, okay, fine. You don't clean bathrooms. I don't take out trash.
And I don't check the
I
mail.
don't check mail. But that doesn't mean I don't clean the rest of the house. I just don't clean a bathroom.
Right. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't clean up after himself in the bathroom.
Right. No,
What
I do
we're
that.
talking about is just like deep cleaning.
I'm not deep cleaning.
He's not getting on his knees and cleaning around the toilet bowl.
I'm not doing that.
He ain't, scrubbing the shower. He's not doing that. Like picking up his towel and stuff like that and setting out the mat. He does stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like deep cleaning a bathroom,
I ain't doing
he's not going to do it. But when it comes to taking out the trash, I will let my trash pile up at my front
for
door.
days.
Because we have committed to saying like, okay, we're not going to do this. In the event that I need to do it, I know how to pick up the slack. Case in point, he had a broken ankle. So obviously I couldn't expect my husband, we have a 2-story house, so I couldn't expect him to come up and down the stairs every day and take out the trash. So I picked up, on something that was a our defined role that I said I wasn't going to do, that I did. But now that he's out the cast, I mean, what, fresh day one out, right? I was like, you got to start giving
I
that
wasn't
thing.
supposed to put pressure on her, but she was.
You got to start giving that thing.
You can bend it, you can walk.
You can bend it, you can walk. So I'm gonna need you to go ahead and start getting your practice back in and getting this trash out.
But to get back to the question, like you need to have defined roles of whatever. I would say three things. One, you have to have defined roles as far as what's going to be done in outside the living arrangement. If you guys are living together, you need to have the financial conversation. Like who if we're both working, who's going to be responsible for what? Who's going to be who's responsible for paying things or things like that. And then and then thirdly, I just lost my train of thought because you said something. Thirdly, you need to have set boundaries. Like you need to say, hey, you need to know what because everyone categorize cheating as different things. So you need to say, hey, what are your limits? Like we live in the social media age, so you need to have set boundaries on, hey, I'm not cool with you doing this. I'm not cool with you doing that.
That's a good one. I
And
didn't
so
think
like
about that.
that's like you need to have the financial conversation. You need to have the conversation about roles within the relationship within the marriage, and you need to have your boundary conversation.
Yeah, I like the third one you mentioned about what the other person constitutes as cheating. Um, I think that also goes back
Because
to
you have some crazy shit that you consider cheating, and I
who,
don't.
me?
Yes, I don't.
I do have crazy things that I consider cheating. Like
You
what?
do.
Let's talk about it.
You do. We're not gonna talk about it now, but
Okay,
you got.
it.
Well, how about you revisit with yourself? Say it out loud what you deem cheating.
Welcome back. Okay, but
Okay.
anyway, I like what you said because I think also it goes back to, like I said earlier, that comes with also knowing your partner, right? And the more time you spend with your partner, the more you learn your partner, the more like new nuances you learn about their personality and things like that, and you'll know what could possibly make your partner uncomfortable without them even having to say, like, "Hey, that makes me uncomfortable." You know what I mean? Like if you're scrolling on social media, if I so happen to look in your phone and I notice, the algorithm is doing its thing according to the things that you look at. And if I look over your shoulder and you're scrolling through your phone and all I see is booty,
Ass and titties.
you know what I
Ass and
mean?
titties.
Then I'm gonna know, like, okay, so like what? Like, I know you're a man and you have eyes. Like I've never had an issue with that. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, you never had an issue with me like looking.
no,
It's the it's the lingering. It's the lingering that you have an issue with.
if you scrolling, just scroll. I don't need you to sit there and analyze the damn
I ain't
picture.
gonna lie. Sometimes I run it back.
I'm
Oh,
not, I can't hold you to that because
I
I'm
know you.
guilty.
I know you do the same thing. I'm not dumb. I know you got eyes like I got eyes, and we not young no more. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Like we have not kept up with ourselves because we've been together.
We're working on it. Okay, that's not an excuse to be unhealthy, people.
But I mean,
But we're working on it.
but
Okay.
like, you know, I will say this. I did have the thought about at one point. I said, okay, this is getting too crazy, and I did have to alter my algorithms quite a
Yeah,
bit.
I saw that. Yes.
And it took a while. It took about a month of diligence, but I got it.
But I also think you did that because you could also see like
The negative effect it had on me.
the exactly.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the fact that that's not something I had to bring to his attention because I know essentially, like at his core, what type of man he is. And he knows when like at the core of what type of man he is and what type of man he wants to be. And especially because we have a daughter. So he tries to be very mindful of even the things that he does. Now, granted, my daughter's not over his shoulder looking at him when he scrolls, because that's like a very big rule in my house. But the fact that he knew within himself to be like, okay, this is getting a little out of hand. And when it starts to make like an impact on him, he's like, okay, I need to change that because we know that this could go down an aisle that we don't need it to go down. So that I can appreciate. But knowing your partner and getting to know your partner as best as you can, and knowing the things that could make them uncomfortable or what your partner constitutes as cheating is definitely a conversation
That
that
you have
needs
to
to be
have.
had, and especially in today's society with social media, because speaking, when I speak to other married people and I be hearing about the things they be doing on social media, I be like, how could you possibly think that's okay? Like DMing other people, that's not okay.
I don't see
That-
what's wrong with DMing people if it's about business.
okay, if it's about business, that's different, but you know darn well what I mean. Not about
What
business.
if you DM somebody and just to see how they're doing? Like if somebody,
First of all,
if somebody,
you don't need to be DMing nobody you don't know or that you
no,
can't see
no,
in person to be like, oh, how are you doing? Or
no,
I just wanted
like
to compliment you on your picture. Please.
I don't do stuff like that. What I'm saying,
Disrespectful.
I don't do stuff like that. What I'm saying is that well, like, I don't, it's not, well, I guess technically it's a DM, like when you reply to stories, but I only follow people I know.
I know.
It's like,
but the thing is, it's like, okay, so I'll put it this way. If you wouldn't be comfortable showing your partner,
I don't care about that. You can have my phone anytime.
I know. And that's what I know. But if you think that if you were to show your partner a DM that you sent somebody that could potentially bring up a discussion or cause your partner to feel some type of way about it, then 9 times out of 10, you shouldn't be sending that person DM. If you feel the need to DM somebody, like, if they're further on Instagram, like I come up, the things I see on Instagram, like if there's a sexy guy on Instagram, I'm not going to go out of my way to go to his DM and be like, oh, nice pic. Oh, your abs looking right today. Oh, great workout. Like, would you think that's appropriate?
Yes, you shouldn't.
That wouldn't be appropriate. But other people would think all I did was give them a compliment. All I did was say, nice video.
Hey, you know what? Like I always say, to each his own. But if that's something that is allowed in the definition of your relationship, then that's albeit to you.
And that's why conversations need to be had. Over here, we're not doing that.
I remember one time I had to say, no, babe, that's my cousin. He was like, who is this? I said, babe, that's my cousin.
He did. I was like, wait a minute, I could have sworn I met everybody in the family.
Like, why are you harding this? I said, babe, that's my cousin. First of all, she's not a B. That's my cousin. Calm down.
That was funny.
You was ready to start World War III over a pig.
Listen here.
The worst for me, honestly, it's like when you're in that, it was, I don't know what you're going through, but you're like in the phase where you're like, you're in a phase, you're in a phase of like, I see this bitch keep laughing at all your memes and hearting your pictures. Who is this? I was like, you went through a phase.
Was it like the grocery store all over again?
Yeah, like it was, but it was before that. It was like you went through a phase where like no one else could find what I post funny, but you. Like, you're like, who was this trying to like? Hey, they just
wait. I just have to give you a really quick story because we were at the grocery store one day and I was over there getting like bagging up and stuff. And the cashier
said you would do.
Yes, the cashier was talking to Maurice, right? And so he was like talking to her, but everything he said just seemed to be so damn funny. And so I'm just looking at her like, and I was like, he's not that damn funny. Like, you can stop.
You were such a
in his face. He is a married man. He ain't that damn funny. Cut it out.
You were such a hater that day. I was just literally just talking to the young lady.
The way it's the way she was trying to like, haha, kiki in your face. Like, if she wasn't behind the register, she probably would have tried to give you a hug goodbye.
Like, I don't like,
and I don't play that.
You can ask.
Warning to the public: I don't play about mine.
You can ask anybody who knows me or who be around me. Like, I mention you. I make it when I walk in the room. I make it sure people know.
No, like that's never been a problem.
The first thing I say, oh yeah, my wife like that too. Or my wife do that too. Like, I'm gonna say it out loud. Like, no, because I don't want them problems. So I'm gonna let you know off rip. Yeah, no, I got a wife, pimp. I can't.
No, I get it. Like, but
but you went through this phase. I was like, and I think that I just stopped posting stuff. I was like, it ain't. I said it ain't worth the headache. Like, why am I getting
tripping?
Like, I'm getting a headache off of what somebody else is doing. Like, I can't control what they do.
No, I get it. I get it. No, it wasn't. It was not as bad as he's trying to make it seem.
Yeah, it was.
He's trying to hype himself.
Yes, it was. This bitch keep commenting on everything you post. Why she hard?
Bitch, stop! Don't sit up here with a big blue cap on.
Did you? You didn't?
Who did I call a bitch?
I'm not gonna say it. They might be listening. But you went through a phase where you were really in your feelings. I don't know if you felt vulnerable or what, but it was like, I don't know why she tripping. Because all I do is go to work and go home.
I know.
So, I don't know.
It was probably
I don't know where I got time to the creep.
I can't recall.
Oh yeah, now you're dumb. All right. Sure.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand. premarital conversation.
Premarital conversations. Well, that's what you should have. Be mindful and have a ground rules for social media. But now, granted, I think like if you are in a relationship with someone who does social media, like that's what they do for a living, that's how they get the income, then you gonna have to just live with that. Like you should know, like they're not gonna. You shouldn't. I don't think you should ask someone to scale back their life if that was their
And something they were doing.
but prior to
Yeah.
prior to
Okay, so that kind of takes me to a point. Um, gosh, yes. So like knowing who your partner is, the tendencies that they have now, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking marriage fixes certain things, right?
it does not.
If you think if your partner has tendencies now that irk you and get on your nerves,
10 times more.
guess what? When you get married, they are still going to be there and they might get worse.
Right.
Don't think that when you become a husband or that when you become a wife, it's like um all those things go away or the issues that you guys had before go away. It doesn't go away, it gets exasperated. Because another thing that I also find, and this is through conversations with people who have been divorced, is when people get married, there's like this psychological change that happens from having a title of wife and having a title of husband. And now all of a sudden you start putting expectations on your partner that you didn't have prior going into the marriage.
Sure.
And then when you have discussions and disagreements, now you want to say, as my husband, you supposed to be doing A, B, and C. As my wife, you supposed to be doing A, B, and C. But if you guys didn't have that conversation or at least somewhat of an establishment or foundation going into the marriage, that just breeds like a form of chaos,
That's
you know?
that's why I don't agree with the argument that was a while ago where like, oh, I'll start acting like a wife once I'm a wife. Like, no, that's not how it works.
Right.
Because I can't expect you to act different just because I marry you. Like
Right.
I'm gonna marry you based off the things you're doing as my girlfriend, as you showing me that you are a suitable partner to me. That's why I never understood that. Like you can't um want a man to do all the things he would do for you in a committed relationship without the paper, but all of a sudden but you have to have the paper to unlock the next level of you, and that's not a fair.
I can see that perspective. I do. And I agree with it to
But
some extent. I'm not saying necessarily, but I also see why some people would say that, right? Because
I just think
then
I think the women who say that have a bad time vetting men.
okay, that's a whole nother topic.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
That's my.
Um,
I'm just.
what's the saying they used to say? Why buy the milk if you can get the cow? Is that how it's Is that how it's saying?
Something like that.
Okay, so it's kind of like that too. But on the same sense, I also think a little bit going back to vetting. If you've dated long enough or been with this person long enough, at their core, you should have some type of understanding of what type of person this is, right? So if it's for instance, like if with that comment, like you said, I'll start being a wife when I am one. What is your partner's definition of being a wife?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because your definition of being a wife and his definition of being a wife may be two different things. So it's like going into the marriage, what do you expect of me? And what do I expect of you?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation. You need to have these conversations
Right.
before.
And it's not to say that even when you have the conversations, again, not to say that when you have the conversations, things won't change once you get into a marriage, because they will change. But it's at the core, like the base core. Like if you have the conversation of, okay, who's going to be responsible for majority of the housework? Okay, let's just say I'll be responsible for majority of the
I
housework.
wouldn't sign up for that.
But I'm just saying, if I take on the responsibility and say, yes, I'll be responsible for majority of the housework, that's not to say that during certain times that 100% negates you from ever being responsible for housework.
Exactly. No.
Do you know what I mean? So
Exactly.
prime example, I guess yesterday for us would be our daughter started school back today. And I had, we had my mother-in-law here recently. We had some company over this past weekend. So usually when we've had people in the house, I like to like really deep clean my house, because when there's other people who don't live here in the home, I feel like my house can never just like stay the way I like it, right? So I knew I wanted to get to the downstairs, I wanted to get to the upstairs, I wanted to vacuum, I wanted to lay out her clothes, I had to put away. There was a lot I had to do around the house, but she also had practice, right? And I normally take her to gymnastics practice. Now, that is my normal responsibility because I'm also a stay at home mom. So normally I take care of all of those things because I'm usually the one that's primary in the house, right? But that doesn't negate him from helping when he is home. And because he is home, because he's injured, now it's like, okay, I need to be able to tap in my partner. So this is a task that you don't normally do, but this is a task I need you to tap in on. So he took her to gymnastics practice, which is 2 hours, and that gave me the 2 hours to be at home uninterrupted, get everything that I needed to do and get done for her, so that I could get her to bed on time, so that I could get to bed on time, so that we could have a moment together, right? But had he not done that and just been like, yeah, but that's the responsibility, that's part of your responsibility to take her to practice, to do what you need to do with the house, to get her prepared, because that's what I normally take care of because I'm the primary person in the house of, I like to call myself the COO of our household. Then, things would have went a lot different, and I would have been more tired, and I wouldn't have got to bed on time, still having to get up to get her ready. So
But I operate in the thought of there are, when it comes to our marriage, there are no hard lines.
right, right,
Well,
right.
I'm sorry, outside of infidelity,
Oh,
that's a
well,
hard one.
yes, yes.
Everything else, there are no hard lines, and that sometimes the line may be pushed or the workload may be pushed one way or another, depending on the situation and what's happening at the time. So it's like, granted, even though I am aware that I don't like you do most of the housework and you do most of the cooking and the cleaning. That doesn't mean that I never clean or I never cook,
Right,
just because that's what you primarily do. Like, I understand that there's going to be times where it's going to be like, hey, I understand that this is part of my agreement, but I just don't have that right now. Like, I need your help.
right,
And it's my role and my responsibility as your partner to be like, okay, I got you. Because I understand, like, it's not this is not a every time thing. This is not a once a month thing. This is a once in a while, like, she needs me to step in and do more than what I'm supposed to do. And I'm cool with that.
right,
I have no issue with that, especially if it's involving our child and anything that she may want or need to do. I have no problem with that. And I think that's one thing that people have to understand. Just because especially if you have a wife that stays home, right? Just because she's home doesn't mean she's just home. Like, she's working just as hard as you're working. So, like, yeah, she's gonna want time to herself. She's gonna want free time. And like and if you have kids, we only have one kid, and I feel like you do a lot because because granted, she may be in school for 6 hours a day, but it's like you maybe get 4 of those 6 hours because you still have to use the hour before hour, like at least 2 of those hours, just pick up, drop off, and getting her ready and such things of that such. So it's like, I do understand that just because you're not physically clocking in somewhere, that
because I'm always plugged in.
I understand that you're just because you're not physically clocking in somewhere, that you're not like, that you still need your time to yourself. Like,
Right,
you still need time. And I think that's important in marriage. You have to understand that your partner is going to need time to themselves, because at the end of the day, we're all still individuals with our own passions, our own hobbies, our own goals, and things like that. So you have to have time to nourish yourself so that you can then nourish your marriage.
right. Totally agree. Well said, babe. Totally agree. But yes, so it's about knowing like the core of your partner, and like you said, there's outside of fidelity and whatever else you deem to be a hard line. There's no real hard lines, but I find it easier and the flow much better when there are said responsibilities. I don't want to necessarily say rules because
That's because you're a list person.
very much a list person, list work. But responsibilities. Like right now in this dynamic, I stay home and you go to work. But not too long ago, we both worked full time, and we had a child. So the responsibilities looked a lot different, right?
There are
So
more, yeah, there are more 50-50.
well, there's no such thing, but they were.
There are more even. Well, no, because I was doing most of the cooking.
Right, exactly, exactly. And that was a lot based off of our work schedules too.
Yeah.
So before, he would, like, on his days off or even during the week, he would sweep him off the floor. He did majority of all, if not all, the cooking during the week. He did straighten up living rooms and do all that
I'm
stuff.
also the better cook. So
Whatever. He did do all of those things because we both worked, and I worked a little bit further than from where our daughter originally went to daycare. So things looked a lot different. And then once we made the decision that I would stay home after COVID, um, we had to sit down and not only have the financial conversation about what that was going to look like, but we also had to sit down and redistribute what the responsibilities were going to be. And it just makes it so much, like, easier to know, like, okay, when he comes home and he's like, I would really appreciate it, like, if my dinner is made when I come home. I have no problem making sure that when he comes home from work after working 12, 13-hour days, or if not more, that his dinner is made, the house is clean, my daughter is taken care of. She's put to bed, and he can come in, he can eat his dinner, he takes a shower. We try to spend maybe an hour together if he has the energy, and then he goes to bed, right? Just like when I go grocery shopping and I want to go out to, get things for the house or whatever, I expect there to be funds for me to be able to do that. Do you understand what I mean? So
yes, yeah, yeah, because you swipe without understanding. That's for damn sure.
it's like in his mind, he has this thing where it's like, I know when I come home, like, home is taken care of, right? And I know that when I need to do things for us, or do things for our home, or do things for our daughter, or do things for myself, I know that it's going to be taken care of. It should be there, because as long as he focuses on what we agreed to be his responsibility, and I focus on what we agreed to be my responsibility, then things should run accordingly. Now, granted, there are times where those lines, like, cross, because we're still married, we're doing life together, we're individuals, we still go through our own individual crap, amongst the things that we have to figure out as a married couple. I still struggle and deal with my own personal things, my own mental health, my own health. He still has to think about his mental health, his health, and everything else in between. And then there's what we have to deal with together, and then our individual stuff that we deal with together as well. So, but having those conversations about what your home structure is going to look like, I cannot tell you how important that is, especially before going into marriage, right? Having the boundaries, like you mentioned earlier, and boundaries also pertaining to family, guys. Your boundaries pertaining to each other's family, okay?
That's something we really had to grow,
Well,
because like
that's gonna be like a
we can do a
probably a
whole
whole nother
episode. I'll say quickly, like we it used to be like a lot of back and forth, and then we pretty much just made the ground rule of, okay, we're going to discuss it amongst ourselves, and I deal with my family, you deal with your family. Like, so whatever we agree with, you go announce it to your family, so I don't have to hear it. Because, my wife knows I will cuss somebody out. I'm heartless. I don't care. And
He's not heartless, guys. He just he
uh,
has moments.
and so she deals with her family, I deal with mine, and I've always been a honest, blunt person. I'm not going to make something sound like sugar when it's shit. I'm gonna just tell you straight up, like, this is what it is. This is what we decided, and whether or not you agree with it or not, there's nothing you can do with it, because it's what we decided. So a lot of times, so we came to the conclusion, like, my wife has the ability to make bad news sound sweet. So, so she
I have the ability to make bad news sound sweet.
yes. So we agreed that she would deal with her family and I will deal with mine because my family knows how I am. They know I'm a just what I they know that I love them and what I say I don't mean any harsh like anything by
They
it.
just understand your
They
personality.
understand who I am.
People who don't know him may not understand his personality, and to them, he may sound like an asshole. That's always the running
And I,
thing, like within the family. We always say Maurice can be an
and
asshole.
I'm but I'm fine by that.
But it's not like, because he's
Well, that's how
literally trying to be an asshole, but that's just how it can come off to people who don't know him.
but that's how I got the nickname on Lethal because I'll literally just I'll say what it is without any regard to your feelings, and it's
Right, but
I'm
that's
not.
not always necessarily a good trait to have, babe.
Well, I'm not intentionally hurting I'm not intentionally hurting people's feelings. It's just I'm honest and I'm blunt with my honesty, and it's not. It's just how I am. So
Yeah,
so
he's working on it though.
I'm not
He is.
okay.
He's working on it. But
Maybe to you and my daughter, that's about it.
so yeah, guys. In a nutshell, having the conversations about boundaries, having the conversation about family, having the conversation about what your home structure is going to look like, having conversation about your finances. Oh man, like knowing where you are individually financially. Now granted, again, with us it was a little different because we've been together since we were like 15 years old, so there wasn't like careers and like massive amounts of money or anything like that, and bills and all that stuff. And those are like growing pains that we went through together. But having, once we became adults and having to sit down and have conversation about finances and each other's spending habits and all of that stuff, you really have to have those conversations. I remember when we were in our early 20s, the first time we tried to merge our finances, because when we were like in our early 20s, the way we had divvied it up is he paid pretty much all of the like house bills and I paid our rent at the time, right? Because that's how it worked best for our paychecks. So I paid the rent, he paid the house bills and all that other stuff. And and I paid my car note because you didn't have a car note. So that worked for that time. And then the minute we
But I bought groceries.
yeah, you bought groceries. And when we tried to merge our accounts the first time, this was like in our very early 20s. When we tried to merge our accounts the first time, it wasn't a successful thing. And I would say one of the reasons why it wasn't a successful thing too, and this is really important when it comes to learning your partner, is there can be a lot of ego in things, right? So I felt like when we before we merged, I shopped a lot back back when
Before
back
you,
when.
you shopped a lot.
It was different. Okay. I know I'm talking about like I shopped a lot when it came to like buying clothes and stuff like that. I don't feel like I shop a lot
Now
when
you
it
buy
comes to
shit.
right. It's
You're still
different.
shopping though.
Right. But it's different. So I used to I used to shop quite a bit because I also worked in a clothing store. So that was to be expected. But I always felt like, I had money to buy clothes when I wanted to buy clothes. And then I felt like when we merged our accounts, because the consensus was we were going to merge the money and the money would be, the money, and we would pay the bills and we would do this and we would do that. So it just kind of made sense. And, we were going to be like, yeah, like we're together. Like this is a commitment. We're together. This is the money. And I remember trying to like, I would say do my weekly shopping. And I was like, why I feel like I ain't got no money though? Like I should be able to like spend like $100 right now or spend like $200 right now, and I feel like I'm real broke. But I didn't feel like that when the money wasn't together. So then part of me was like, okay, well, are you spending money that you wouldn't normally spend just because our paychecks are together now? Or and it became this thing. But that to me now looking back, I'm like, there was a lot of ego involved. There was not that much togetherness on the level of finances. But when we did it the second time, especially when we started, redirecting and structuring our goals, because we knew we eventually want to have kids, we knew eventually we wanted to own property, we knew all the things that we wanted to do. So it was going to be, it made sense to come together also as one financially. And when you take the ego out and when you both can look at the money and say, okay, we know that we're trying to achieve a goal. So I have to trust that you're going to make good decisions. I'm going to make good decisions. We're going to set up bumpers for each other so that both of us can have some type of sense of security when it comes to the money, right? So before it was kind of like willy nilly. The second time round, it was like, okay, we both agree this percentage goes here. We both agree that if you're going to spend more than $125, you need to, come to your partner and be like, hey, this is what I'm planning to purchase. We both have to agree that, okay, is this a smart purchase? Is this not such a smart purchase to make right now? But all of that came with growth. All of that came with
And
experience.
let's not discount that the second time around, I had got a significant raise
Yeah.
where I was now making way more than you. So
Okay.
you were more comfortable.
So now you're trying to make me like that's the only reason.
You were a lot more comfortable. Because we went from living comfortably with both our income to where now, like,
You got a raise because
I
you
got
moved up in work.
I moved up in work.
Right.
I got to the level I've been waiting to get to, and now we're covering all our expenses in one check. And
Yeah.
we literally we spend about 4 years blowing.
Like
So
that's
much
a whole other, we're gonna do a whole conversation on that
But
too, because that's
but
those are things that are never ending. I feel
Right.
like in marriage.
but so don't sit here and sugarcoat it like you gave me a second chance. Like, no, you were like, this Negro making money now. Maybe I can put my little dividends with his dividends and we can make something happen.
See what it looked like,
Yeah.
right?
So don't make it seem like you did me a favor.
I've been down with you since day one, babe. Like,
Oh, so you thought you had a little grace? From the fact, I mean, I remember those days. When you talking about shopping, and I remember you hiding bags in your trunk.
do you remember when I had got fired and you helped me clean out my trunk?
And you had bags.
I quite literally forgot that I was just throwing bags in my hat.
You were just wilding. You were just buying shit to buy it. Like, you honestly were just buying stuff because you felt like, oh, I can get it, and then like you wasn't even using it. And that's one thing I always used to tell you. I said, at least the stuff I purchase, I use. You buy stuff just because it looks to you in the moment.
Well, that was different. I was like 21, 22. All I could say is that my savings should have looked beautiful in my 20s, and it did not. But I was cute.
We talking about our late 20s, not the early 20s. In the early 20s,
my early 20s.
No, the savings should have been beautiful in our late 20s. In our early 20s, it was a struggle.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's when I did most of that in my early 20s. But anywho, yes. So those conversations are really, really, really important, because if you don't at least have an understanding about where your partner's views and thoughts are on, family finances, boundaries, family structure, work, even in work, um, then it's going to make for a tougher conversation down the line once there's more things involved. When you guys start having kids, when you start investing, when you start buying property, when all of those things, it's just going to make for a much more, I would think, difficult compromise, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
But at least if you have the conversation before, you can kind of get an idea of where your partner's head is, based on how they choose to answer. And I also think the type of household they came from is really impactful, because their views also change.
But you also got to understand, when it comes to like the major decisions, like big decisions, like if y'all don't agree, you shouldn't move forward.
Yeah.
You shouldn't move forward, because if you don't agree, that's just going to lead to argument, and then whether it goes your way or not, it's going to be something that's going to be too heavy on the relationship, I
Yeah,
think.
I agree. I definitely agree.
But we need to get out of here.
There's so much more to cover. But yeah, so just a couple of things to think about on premarital conversations if marriage is this thing that you're trying to get to or that you want to go through. And every week we'll continue to share a bit of our journey and the lessons that we're learning and the compromises that we've had to have in our marriage and that we continue to have in our marriage on making the decision to like stay together and be together and try to have a happy life together, right?
Yep.
All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you, or we'll see you. Yeah, see you or hear from
You'll
you.
hear us.
Yeah, you'll hear us next week on another episode of A Life After I Do. Peace.
Peace out.